Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today we're diving into a growing political firestorm inside South Africa's Government of National Unity, a coalition that was meant to bring stability, but now finds itself battling internal rifts. At the center of this controversy is none other than Dean Macpherson, the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure from the Democratic Alliance, and his public support for the highly divisive Expropriation Act. Now, for those unfamiliar, the Expropriation Act is a law that enables the government to seize land and property in the public interest, and under certain circumstances, without compensation. That last bit, without compensation, has sparked fierce opposition, particularly from within the DA, which has always stood firmly for the protection of private property rights. Dean Macpherson's open endorsement of this act has blindsided many in his own party. In fact, a growing faction within the DA's Federal Council is now calling for his public censure. They argue that his position directly contradicts long-standing DA policy and could damage the party's credibility with its base. Behind closed doors, some senior Federal Council members have reportedly called his behavior a betrayal of liberal democratic values. One insider was quoted saying, "Dean's support for the act opens the door to state overreach and creates economic uncertainty." So how did we get here? Well, the Expropriation Act was passed by Parliament earlier this year, backed by several coalition partners including the ANC, the EFF, and smaller parties. For them, this law is seen as a tool to address South Africa's long-standing land inequality. But for the DA, and its more conservative and business-aligned base, it represents a dangerous shift in how the state relates to property rights. Macpherson, on his part, is defending his stance. He says that the version of the act he supports includes constitutional safeguards and does not permit blanket land grabs. In his words, this is a pragmatic framework, something the country needs for meaningful land reform and infrastructure growth. But that hasn't stopped the backlash. Critics within the DA say any concession on this issue, no matter how limited, sets a precedent, one that could eventually be expanded or abused. And more than that, they're concerned that his actions are sending mixed signals to voters just months after a hard-fought election. This all comes at a time when the DA is walking a tightrope. As a major player in the coalition government, the party now has to juggle two difficult tasks: governing in partnership with ideological opponents like the ANC, while staying true to the liberal principles it campaigned on. That balancing act is proving to be a serious challenge. There are reports that DA leader John Steenhuisen is trying to calm tensions behind the scenes. The issue of Macpherson's conduct is expected to be tabled at the next Federal Council meeting. But here's the catch: if the DA chooses to discipline Macpherson publicly, it could fracture party unity. If they let it slide, it could look like they're bending to ANC policy. Meanwhile, coalition allies aren't keeping quiet either. The ANC and its left-leaning allies have made it clear they see the Expropriation Act as essential for justice and redress. They've already accused Macpherson of overstepping by suggesting he wouldn't fully implement the law. It gets worse. Deputy President Paul Moshatile has even suggested that if Macpherson won't implement laws passed by Parliament, regardless of his party affiliation, then he should resign. That's no small statement. It shows the cracks that are already forming within the unity government, which was always an uneasy alliance. And then there's the legal side of things. The DA is reportedly preparing legal papers to challenge the constitutionality of the Expropriation Act. They're arguing not only that it violates property rights, but also that it was rushed through Parliament with procedural flaws. This legal fight could drag on for months and deepen the political divide. Political analysts like Judith February have pointed out that this situation highlights a fundamental issue: the DA's shift from being an opposition party to being a governing party. Governing means compromise, and compromise, especially on core ideological issues, can tear a party apart. February warns that how the DA handles this moment could define its future. Will it stand firm on its principles and risk being sidelined in government? Or will it play the long game and accept ideological concessions for the sake of national influence? There's also a deeper issue here about trust. Many DA supporters voted for the party believing it would protect economic stability and defend constitutional rights. Now they are seeing a DA minister back legislation that they view as threatening both. That's not just a policy disagreement, it's a potential breach of trust. On the other hand, there are those who argue that South Africa desperately needs to address the issue of land. The legacy of dispossession runs deep, and any government serious about social justice will have to confront it head-on. For this group, Macpherson's stance is a sign of maturity, an attempt to breach the historical divide between property rights and equitable access. So where does this leave us? We are witnessing more than just a policy spat. This is a battle for the soul of the DA and, arguably, for the future of South Africa's political center. Can parties like the DA survive in coalition with ideological opposites? Or will issues like the Expropriation Act be the wedge that splits the GNU apart? This is a story that's still unfolding, and its consequences will be felt far beyond Parliament. If the DA's internal fractures widen, we could see a party realignment. If the coalition begins to crumble, it may lead to a governance crisis. And in the middle of it all is one man, Dean Macpherson, whose words have triggered a national conversation on land, power, and political identity. What do you think? Is Macpherson acting as a responsible minister with an eye on national development? Or is he betraying the very principles the DA stands for? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell icon so you never miss a deep dive like this one. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.